Rookies are reporting today at Commanders camp, and that means we are getting our eyes on their new quarterback, Jayden Daniels. There's a lot of questions brewing about this rookie quarterback class. Who's going to be the most successful? Who's the best fit? And of course, we're going to dive into that in just a moment. But of course, there is a lot of intrigue around Jayden Daniels and this new Commanders team, new head coach, new quarterback, new OC, all of the things. And they have the previous Heisman Trophy winner under center. Getting a look at the odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Caleb Williams getting into a pretty great situation in Chicago. He is the favorite at plus 140, and then we have Jayden Daniels right behind him at plus 650. Marvin Harrison Jr. rounding out the top three. Let's talk expectations for Jayden Daniels and more news around the NFL with our Super Bowl champ, Ryan Harris. And Ryan, for the 8th straight season, there's a new starting quarterback for the Washington Commanders in week 1. But honestly, Ryan, I almost forget that storyline, and that kind of goes out the window for me because all eyes are on Jayden Daniels. He is so talented, and there's so much hype around him that I forget that they're on their, 7th, 8th new starting quarterback in week 1.
Well, no quarterback they've had looks like Jayden Daniels. I mean, this guy has a cannon of an arm, athletic ability that makes him a dual threat quarterback. And when I talk to his coaches at LSU, they tell me he's a student of the game. That's the #1 thing you want to hear when it comes to a quarterback. Winning a Heisman Trophy is great, but if you think you're done learning before you go to the NFL, you're not going to make it. That's not Jayden Daniels. He is willing to work. As you see right there, a quick release, has already ingratiated himself with his teammates. And even in the drills, little things stick out, like his ball pops out of his arm before the other quarterback. So they have other quarterbacks on the roster, but make no mistake, Jayden Daniels is going to be the starter week 1. And when you add the run game of Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler to that team, that's going to make things a lot easier for Jayden Daniels. Additionally, his run game is going to look more like Lamar Jackson than it does any other quarterback in the NFL. So you're talking weak side RPOs, front side RPOs. Defenses are going to have to play very basic and vanilla, creating opportunities for the offense all over the field, especially with Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, we just saw the state of the Commanders, that graphic. So we want to hear comparisons like Lamar Jackson if you're a Commanders fan, if you're seeing they haven't won, playoff games since 2005. Let's get back to Cliff Kingsbury. We saw him in that video, as you mentioned, the new OC. So I want to talk more about the fit for Jayden Daniels specifically in his offense because, Ryan, it seems like a perfect fit when you consider the similarities between Kyler Murray and Jayden Daniels, and you see it here side by side.
Well, and the biggest thing that Cliff Kingsbury knows is not to focus only on the rushing abilities of the quarterback, and that's going to benefit Jayden Daniels the most. Look, Cliff Kingsbury is an offensive guru. He has broken down protections when I talked to the players who played for him in a way that made it so simple, whether it was the 4th quarter, overtime, or the 1st quarter. And the tendency for coaches when they get a dual threat quarterback is to run the quarterback in the ground. However, Cliff Kingsbury knows you have to have a passing attack. So it is pass first, run second when it comes to a Cliff Kingsbury offense. That's exactly what Jayden Daniels needs. And additionally, in that offense, Cliff Kingsbury makes it very easy for the quarterback to know where to go with the football based on the defender. And look, the jokes write themselves. If any of us lost our job, Jacqueline, in Arizona and went to Thailand, that would be a story all in of itself. However, Cliff Kingsbury has returned, and this will be his piece de la resistance to tell the rest of the NFL he is the top coach. And if he can have a Rookie of the Year in Jayden Daniels and get the Commanders to the top of that NFC East, he will be a head coach before the kickoff of this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah, had a nice little break in Thailand and came back to what looks like a good situation there in Washington. Now, Jayden Daniels' friend, Brandon Aiyuk, he is in the news making headlines because he asked for a trade from the Niners. He wants more money, of course, and he recently spoke to Ryan Clark about his future with the Niners. Take a listen.
What uniform is Brandon Aiyuk wearing in 2024?
If I were to take a guess, probably a Niner uniform. Probably a Niner uniform. I mean, if not a Niners uniform, probably a Washington Commander uniform. If not a Washington Commander uniform, probably a Steelers uniform. I got so much more to give. That's why I'm like, when you talk about social media, and that's a quarterback right there. I'm thinking about what I could do with him. I'm thinking about if the Niners don't want me to come back to play with them, I'm thinking about what I could do. I know what I could do.
All right, Jayden Daniels just kind of making an appearance, popping up, and now the Commanders of it all is starting to make a little bit of sense. Ryan, want to get your take. What do you think of Aiyuk with the Commanders? How does that fit sound to you?
Sounds like a perfect fit at the Commanders. I also like him a lot at the Buffalo Bills, who kind of decimated their receiving core in free agency. I also like him a lot with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What is San Francisco getting in return, though? That's going to be the big question. What are teams willing to give up? And this is what has held up the trade negotiations. Yes, the 49ers want to keep him. And yes, he had 2 consecutive seasons of 1,000 yards, with last year averaging over 17 yards per catch. And he's the 4th most lethal weapon on that offense. When you talk about Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. So teams don't really know what they're getting. And for those of you who haven't played offense in the NFL, one of the things that happens is every defense has to make choices. And when your choice is to leave somebody open between Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to be Brandon Aiyuk. So teams really don't know, is he a #1 receiver? He's a for sure really good too, but I don't think any NFL team wants to pay him $30 million without knowing that he's the guy, separate from the talent that's been around him his entire career there at the 49ers.
So when we think about his rapport with Jayden Daniels, though, of course, playing back in college together, what do you think that looks like, or how would it transition to the next level?
Well, Brandon Aiyuk would be able to help Jayden Daniels tremendously. Look, one of the things that really affects different players, different quarterbacks, is where is the receiver going to be? And Aiyuk knows from playing with Kyle Shanahan not only where to be, but where the quarterback should be looking. One of the things people miss as fans is the fact that coaches will tell players, hey, look, if it's a cover 2, expect the ball on your 5th step. So these are the little things that Aiyuk could help any quarterback with, let alone Jayden Daniels. But let's be clear, Brandon Aiyuk's going to have a great relationship with whatever quarterback he plays with, because he can get open, he can take care of the football, hang on to the football, and help you score touchdowns.
I'm sorry, that bounce off the helmet catch against the Lions, like we just showed that video. I don't think I'll ever get over that, Ryan. That was the craziest catch I think we saw all season, one of these. So we have, of course, some more podcast interview news, and this time we're talking about Davante Adams, because he's leaving the door open ever so slightly in terms of a reunion with Aaron Rodgers, despite his agents aggressively dismissing that idea. Ryan, your takeaways from Davante Adams, giving us like a little bit of what the crowd wants, a little reunion, maybe we want that, but he's saying maybe, maybe not, being really coy about it. What's your takeaway on Davante Adams there in those comments?
This is real, and it's only a crescendo, meaning this is only going to get louder as the season goes on. Davante Adams is with the Raiders right now, who, oh, by the way, don't have a quarterback. And one thing veteran receivers never want to do is waste their final years in the NFL on a team without a quarterback. Now, the question becomes, what are you willing to give up if you're the Jets? Is that Garrett Wilson? Is that another key player that you really do like? But make no mistake, I would be shocked if Davante Adams was on the Raiders roster by the trade deadline come this season. He has made it known that he's unhappy. It can really fracture a locker room. It can prevent the development of other players. And as you see, the sideline antics are not good for the growth and leadership. However, you put him with Aaron Rodgers, the numbers speak for themselves. This is where these two wanted to be together. They wanted to play outside of Green Bay together. And Aaron Rodgers is doing his best to campaign to bring Davante Adams to the Big Apple.
So you said you don't think he's going to be on that roster there come the trade deadline. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at on where he ends up there in New York? New Jersey, I guess.
Well, I think it's a 9. I think it's going to be whether or not the Jets are willing to commit to an aging receiver and an aging quarterback and what that looks like. I mean, Garrett Wilson had a phenomenal year. He's been a fantastic player for the Jets. Does that continue? I mean, these are the questions that are really going to come in. And also, what other team is willing to do more? I mean, if you talk about some of the other teams, again, the Buffalo Bills could use Davante Adams. Pittsburgh Steelers could use Davante Adams, and players love playing for Mike Tomlin, as I did when I was a Steeler. So sometimes that comes into play as well. But at the end of the day, this is going to be about him wanting to play with Aaron Rodgers. That might change his salary. That might change a lot of things. But if he thinks he can win a Super Bowl, he's going to do it.
Ryan, I want to get back to the aging quarterback in question there, Aaron Rodgers. He's 40 years young, but we know in the NFL as a quarterback, especially when you're coming off of a very serious injury like an Achilles injury, aging is a very real thing, and Father Time certainly catches up with quarterbacks. Now, it feels like with Aaron Rodgers, the conversation is split, right? Like some folks have all this faith in him that he's going to come back and be better than ever. Other folks think, hey, I don't think he's going to come back from that kind of an injury at 40 years old. Where do you stand in that conversation, Ryan?
I think he's going to be healthy and stay healthy because he will learn the patented Tom Brady, Peyton Manning technique of getting down. Get to the next down, get to the next series, get to the next game, right? That's what he's focused on. So I think you're going to see a little less risk in the pocket that we're used to seeing with Aaron Rodgers because he does understand how much he impacts a team. Anybody watching that Jets team last year knew that they were a quarterback away from being one of the contenders in the AFC. He understands that from his time away. And let's not discount the fact that the rest of his body got an entire year off. Yes, he tore his Achilles, but don't think that his shoulders and ribs didn't benefit from taking an entire year off from getting hit by helmets. This is going to be a healthy player making healthy choices in the game to stay healthy all year long.
And Ryan, you are no stranger to quarterbacks who can still play at a high level, who are getting older, but have been dealing with injuries, of course. You were on that 2015 Super Bowl team with Peyton Manning, who, of course, was dealing with injury. And if you just look at the numbers, there was a little bit of a decline from 2014 to 2015, but there were enough pieces, the O-line, like you specifically, that we're still there to help you guys win a Super Bowl in 2015, despite what these numbers are saying. Now, if we take that back to Aaron Rodgers, they have a completely revamped O-line there with the Jets, some new pieces on offense. You think of the defense. Do you think even if Aaron Rodgers' numbers decline from one year to the next, do they still have enough pieces there to make a serious run at the Super Bowl, in your opinion?
100% yes, and it's because of the intangibles that an experienced quarterback brings with you. Look, when we first huddled up for our first play in Super Bowl 50, Peyton gets in the huddle and says, hey guys, breathe, okay, breathe. And 10 other guys in the huddle took a breath. We forgot to breathe. These are the little things that matter. Getting into a rhythm means first down, second down, first down. I can hear Peyton saying it right now. And more than anything, when the stadium is shaking and you have to get the first down or you have to score to win the game, you look into that quarterback's eyes and you're going to see steel resolve. That's what Aaron Rodgers can bring, even if those numbers come down, because just like what we just saw with those numbers between 2014 and 15 with Peyton, the one thing missing on there was the ring he got in 2015. Take the stats, we'll take the ring. Aaron Rodgers is thinking the same way.
Ryan, I love the perspective, and if we can just have one more time, have you flash that Super Bowl ring, because yep, there we go. I saw it. I saw it when you're using your hand motions, but I just wanted to get a nice up-close look at it. Ryan Harris, our Super Bowl champ, we certainly appreciate it, getting us ready for the NFL season, and it's going to be here before we know it. We cannot wait, and that season starts on September 8th, a little before that, but you can start watching it on CBS on September 8th. We have a lot of games for you on tap: Jags, Dolphins, Cardinals, Bills, and of course, starting September 8th, you can stream all of the action on Paramount+. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, as we wait for the NFL season to begin, it is rumor season, and there are some rumblings out there about Bill Belichick saying he could return to the sidelines in 2025 as a head coach. Of course, there were reports of the Eagles pursuing Belichick this offseason. Ultimately, Philadelphia decided to bring back Nick Sirianni, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But it is interesting to think, who could Bill coach for if he does decide to give it another go in 2025? He has 6 Super Bowl wins as a head coach, 8 in general, and of course, still chasing Don Shula's 347 wins, the most of all time. Bill at 333. Ryan Harris is back with us to discuss that report. Belichick could be making a return to the sidelines in 2025. I believe he'd be 73 at that time. Ryan, in your opinion, what does Belichick bring to a team at this stage of his career if he does decide to go back in 2025 as a head coach in the NFL?
Bill Belichick brings an incredible amount of situational awareness that will make the difference in winning about 5 more games for a team that is not good at situational football. Just look at the Lions last year and their debacle in that second half with the lineman pass and things like that. That doesn't happen on a team that Bill Belichick is around, let alone being the head coach of, which I'll remind you, 8 total Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach, 31 playoff wins. Look out, I think Andy Reid's coming for that record. But he loves the game. He wants to be around it. If you're a team like the Vikings, if you're a team like the Bills, if you're a team that really is on the precipice that needs something else to get over the hump, bringing in Bill Belichick as a consultant makes 100% sense to get your team to know those little situations where a player here or a package there can make the difference in hosting all of your playoff games versus hosting one playoff game. No doubt Bill Belichick will take a check and cash one from one of the NFL teams. Which one? Unclear at this point.
Yeah, so Ryan, let's dive into that because I know you mentioned Vikings and you mentioned Bills, but if there was one that you think is the absolute best fit, if we could just play hypotheticals, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think it'd be fun to see him at the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, wouldn't that be something to have his defensive expertise with one of the most brilliant minds in the history of football with Andy Reid? Also, would look at him to maybe go to Chargers as a defensive consultant. What would that look like with a Harbaugh coach team and Bill Belichick consulting on the other side? But if you talk about head coaching coming next year, you got to really look at the New York Giants, where Bill Belichick won his first Super Bowls. He loves that team. He loves the people in that organization, the family that owns the Giants. That's a team that I think if Brian Daboll doesn't do well, the Bill Belichick calls are going to be coming in early and often. Also look at a team like Charlotte. There's going to be some teams that are going to have availabilities, and they'd be happy to have him. But the biggest thing that Bill Belichick has to understand is the game is different now than it was when he was coaching and had the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. Yes, you can be tough. Yes, you can be aware in that situational football, but you have to treat players differently. We're all learning that, those of us who are over 30. This younger generation behaves differently. They get their information differently. That's going to be the biggest challenge for Bill Belichick if he wants to become a head coach next year. But make no mistake, he has all the tools to help a team win a championship this year.
I know you mentioned that head coaching fit with the Giants. So thinking about Brian Daboll, of course, there was a little bit of fun with Tommy DeVito last season, but that was kind of the bright spot of their season. What has to happen for him, for his job to be secured this season? Is it, a winning record? Is it getting into the wild card round? What does that look like if his job is going to be safe?
The New York Giants have to win the division if Brian Daboll's job is going to be safe. 2 years ago, they went to the wild card. They beat a good Vikings team on the road, an incredible game. And that's not going to do it anymore. They want to see improvement in the NFL, not regression. So you have to do something new. That starts for the Giants with winning that division and hosting multiple playoff games. And if they don't do that, I believe Brian Daboll will be one of the first coaches gone come that calling Dark Monday, or they call it Black Monday, excuse me, they call it in the NFL.
All right, let's talk about the Eagles, because I believe they are the favorites to win the division. The division is stacked when you think about, of course, Jayden Daniels, Dan Quinn with the Commanders, and then, of course, the Eagles, and then the Cowboys, who always have high expectations. But let's start with the Eagles, because they were a team that was rumored to have wanting to hire Bill Belichick. Ultimately, they go with Sirianni, and Sirianni's kind of debunking that, saying, I didn't really think about it. I can't think about things I can't control. But when you think about that collapse at the end of last season, Ryan, after starting 10-1, losing 6 of the final 7. Just how much pressure are the Eagles and Nick Sirianni under after that collapse that we saw towards the end of the season?
The most pressure in the NFL. And look, I say this as a former player and Super Bowl champion. Nick Sirianni should have been fired in Week 18 last year when he had his starters playing against the Giants, trying not to give away the division to the Cowboys, which ultimately ended up happening. That was inexcusable. A.J. Brown got injured. Jalen Hurts got injured. And let's remember, they're going to be missing Jason Kelce. And I know a lot of people think that linemen don't matter, but we do, specifically centers. So they have to get their offense going. They, at points last season, I talked to players, they had an offense where the lineman didn't know if it was a run or a pass until the running back said go. That is incredibly hard to do, especially on the road. That is basic football that you should not be playing in the NFL. Nick Sirianni has a lot of work ahead of him, and he must win to keep his job, and it better look good too, or they're gonna, those calls for his job are gonna come calling as well.
Man, this NFC East, it's volatile because we're saying the Giants have to win, the Eagles have to win, and then of course there's always that sense about the Cowboys as well because they always have a great regular season. They'll win the division and then they'll come up short in the playoffs. We saw that against that really young Jordan Love Green Bay Packers team. So I have questions about Mike McCarthy and your thoughts on what needs to happen for Mike McCarthy because there was a conversation that he should not have been brought back as head coach. So where are you at on Mike McCarthy? And I guess just how short is his leash in your opinion?
Well, Mike McCarthy is in danger of losing his entire narrative about his career. I mean, yes, it's great to be a Super Bowl winning coach. And if you continue to coach for 10 plus years and don't even get close again, how good of a coach are you? I mean, he has to win. Now, the benefit for Mike McCarthy is he has Dak Prescott, which looks more and more like he's going to be in a contract year. Whenever a player's in a contract year, especially quarterbacks, they cut out the noise, they produce, they get focused, they focus everybody around them in the locker room. That might end up helping Mike McCarthy more than anything else. He might be telling Jerry Jones, don't give him a new deal, make him play his tail off so I can keep my job too, because that's where they're at with Mike McCarthy. No question he's had success in the past, but not the success they expected when they brought him to the Cowboys. And if he's not doing well, Bill Belichick going to the Cowboys, I mean, that's a match made in heaven. America's coach, America's team, the story writes itself. So plenty of people want that job, but Mike McCarthy is going to have the first choice on whether he gets to keep his job or not by the way the Cowboys play this year.
Yeah, Cowboys fans, they just want to see an NFC championship at least this season, next season, sometime soon. Ryan Harris joining us here on HQ as we were talking about major storylines this offseason in the NFL. Thanks so much, Ryan. We appreciate it. And getting a look at the odds to win the Super Bowl, of course, the Niners and the Chiefs, the two teams that we saw in the Super Bowl last year, they have the shortest odds at 6-1. The Ravens next at plus 950. The Lions, Bengals, and the Eagles. Lions at 13-1. Bengals and the Eagles at 14-1.